What is the iSkn Slate and why am I reviewing it? It started life as an idea on Kickstarter in 2013. It's a thin little device that you can place a piece of paper on, and when you draw or write, the lines are captured digitally on your iPad, PC, or Mac. Now, even though that initial Kickstarter was in 2013, it took until October of last year, 2015, before this actually was released. For those keeping score, that was about a month before the Apple Pencil came out. And it was conceived at a time when it was really hard to draw on the iPad accurately, so at the time it seemed like a pretty cool idea. And now in the fall of 2016, why am I reviewing it? Well, I think it's actually still a pretty cool little device. And I'm not the only person who thinks it's kind of a neat idea, because last year Wacom released the Bamboo Spark, which is a very similar product. And just 2 weeks ago they launched two new variations of that. One called the Bamboo Folio and the other called the Bamboo Slate. Yes, they are using the same exact name for the same exact product as iSkn. I'll just let the lawyers figure that one out. But joking aside, who is this for? I'd say this is really catered towards sketchers who really enjoy drawing on natural, real paper. Also, if you enjoy note-taking and just want to capture that sort of thing digitally, this works really well. I've reviewed a lot of digital products, and whenever I start a review, there's like a learning curve involved. You have to get used to the feel of drawing on any new device that you get. Every stylus handles a little bit differently. You have to kind of be familiar with the idea of drawing with plastic on glass or rubber on glass. But I gotta say, using the iSkn, there's something incredibly nice about just drawing directly on paper and just having it feel completely natural, like immediately. And I can see that as a really big appeal to people who just like to draw on a sketchbook or on paper. Now, the surface of the slate is a little bit rubbery. This is kind of nice because what you're gonna do is place a piece of paper on it. I hurt my hand. Now, once I got the piece of paper down, I didn't have any problem with that paper moving around on me at all, but it still comes with these handy dandy clips. So if you want to clip your paper down so it doesn't move at all, there you go. And you really don't want this to move around at all, because if your paper is moving around, that means that your digital sketch is probably going to be a little bit off. The Slate comes with this fancy little ballpoint pen, and what's important about it is this little ring at the top. It's a magnetized ring that lets the pen know when it's close to the surface of the slate. You can also purchase little rings that screw onto pencils, brushes, anything that you already own that you want to draw with. Once I started the review and started playing with the ballpoint pen, I kind of wish that I had picked up a couple of those, because it would have been really nice to test this out with a pencil and that sort of thing, but unfortunately I didn't have any at hand. Now, the rings that you can put on your tools add a totally different dimension to drawing on the slate that I hadn't really considered when I first picked it up. If I had multiple rings, I could put them on multiple tools, and then I could like put them on markers or colored pencils, and I could color in my sketch so that my sketch would look cooler, or I could use a pencil in my sketch with ink in my sketch, use them on different layers digitally so it'd look cool as a sketch and as a digital representation. Since I was only working with a ballpoint pen, I felt very limited by it. For example, when I went to color in this character, it was no problem digitally because I could set up a new layer and color him in, but since I was using a ballpoint pen, it looks like it was colored in by a 3-year-old when you look at the sketch. All in all, I was really surprised with how accurate the slate is. When I'm drawing or retracing a line, it got thicker and deeper and it was spot on. I expected it to be off just by a little bit, but it wasn't. When I was also connecting lines to the edges of other lines, again, it was spot on. The slate also has a sketchbook mode that lets me draw in my notebook instead of loose pieces of paper. Since the sketchbook is a little bit thicker, I noticed a little bit of drop in accuracy there. For the most part, it was pretty good, but from time to time, it would take a little bit longer for a line to start drawing and that sort of thing. But for capturing handwriting or that sort of thing, it was fine. Now, so far, I've talked about the iPad app because that's what came first, but they recently released a beta that lets you draw on a Mac or a PC. The apps are pretty much identical, and they have a whole array of tools available to you. When I use the pen, a 3D model of it actually shows up on the iPad screens, and it shows me like the angle that the pen is at and that sort of thing. This has no bearing at all on what I'm actually drawing, and after I've seen it a couple times, the oh cool factor wears off a little bit and it just kind of gets in the way. And so far I haven't really found a way to toggle it off. Or some of the other tools like the pencil, paintbrush, the marker, those actually work really well and show you the diameter of the drawing area that you're using. The one thing that really did kind of stand out to me was the airbrush tool in this application. I've never used a real airbrush, but I kind of get the idea that the closer you hold it, the darker the paint is, and the further away, the lighter and more spread out is. And since this device is using magnets to tell how close your pen is, to the tablet, you can use that actually kind of like a realistic airbrush. Speaking of magnets, the Slate warns you pretty much every chance it gets to stay away from magnets. In fact, it even tells you not to use the Slate on a metal table because it's going to throw it off. When I first started using it, it wasn't detecting my pen, and then I moved it about an inch away from my iPad, and it solved that problem for me. The program it comes with is surprisingly fully featured. There's a lot of export options, like you can export as a layered PSD file, a JPEG, PNG, and that sort of thing. You also have a movie export function very similar to the one in Procreate, basically capturing all your strokes as you draw them and then just replaying them as a movie. All right, so back to the original question, who is this good for? I think this is for people who enjoy sketching on real paper and people who enjoy taking notes. Who enjoys taking notes? People who have to take notes, I guess. On the other hand, if you're looking for something where you can create artwork from beginning to end, I don't think this is really the right choice for you. The workflow is a lot different than most of the digital drawing tools I've used. For example, if I choose a shade of blue and start coloring and decide that I don't like it, I'm stuck. Yeah, in the digital tool, there is an eraser. I can use that, but it doesn't erase on my sketch. I thought I could place another piece of paper over my actual sketch and then actually draw on that to use the eraser tool, but the whole thing is kind of awkward. Making changes like quickly replacing a color is one of the great strengths of working digitally, but in this app, those changes are just kind of a little weird. I found myself constantly choosing between whether I wanted to make my sketch look good or whether I wanted to make it look good on the screen. And when I was done, very rarely did both look okay. Maybe it would have been a little bit different if I had more of those rings to put on pencils and markers and colored pencils and that sort of thing, but I didn't, and so it just felt very confining just to have that pen. That, and you don't have anything like pressure sensitivity, which is something I rely on quite a bit in my artwork. And if you don't have an iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil, this is the most accurate way to draw on an iPad. But this is the part where I awkwardly film a new ending because things have changed since I filmed the original video. Yeah, since I filmed this last week, I went back to the website and I see that they just announced the Slate 2. Now, just poking around, looking at the videos and the promotions of it, it looks like just kind of an updated version of the Slate 1. The hardware doesn't look all that different. It's using the same software, so I have a feeling this review is going to stand up and work pretty well. I didn't really see anything that was earth-shakingly different about it. I will admit, it does look a little prettier though. And you can pre-order it right now if you have $169 sitting around. Anyway, sorry for the awkward end of the video, but there we have it. If you have any questions about it, let me know down in the comments or hit me up on Twitter, and I will see you in another week or two.